Welcome to But Jesus Drank Wine.
And other stories that kept us stuck. I'm Meade.
And I'm Christy.
In this podcast, we'll explore the stories that kept us, stuck, wanting to drink and not wanting to drink all at the same time.
Join us as we show you that freedom from alcohol does not have to mean a life sentence of misery and missing out,
but actually means living an authentic life full of peace, joy, and purpose.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Jeff. Hi.
How you doing?
Hey.
We're good. I don't know why I'm answering for you, Meade. Sorry, I'm good.
Well, no, we're excited. You can answer for me always. We are so excited. This one is for our tennis-loving gals out there. And Lucas Pruitt, youth pastor at my church, who loves all things tennis and anything sports competition. Literally the most competitive human being on the planet. Because today's special guest, Jeff Salzenstein, he's here with us today. We have a lot of things in common, aside from the professional tennis thing that we'll get into. But
Wait, Meade, are you a professional tennis player?
No.
Okay.
Aside from that,
Oh,
we have a lot of things in common aside from the fact that he was a professional tennis player. And
aside. Oh, sorry, I missed that. Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah. But I think, our listeners will enjoy listening today as Jeff battled with some of the greatest tennis players in the world, like Pete Sampras, Michael Chang, Andy Roddick.
My 12-year-old heartthrob.
I know. Can you tell that story real quick, Christy?
That I was literally tennis obsessed.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Probably, Jeff, around somewhere, I think in your heyday. But yeah, I would when they did the tournament at UCLA, I would stand in front of the men's locker room. And I have my picture on Boris Becker's shoulders. I have, oh my gosh, Pete Sampras, Michael. I have all the autographs. I was obsessed. So yes, I'm really excited for this.
Great.
So Jeff, as a former professional tennis player, first started playing for Stanford. He led his team to back-to-back NCAA national championships, and he broke into the top 100 in the world rankings at the age of 30 after two major surgeries that almost ended his career. From the adversity that Jeff faced as an elite athlete, he relentlessly pursued optimal performance, specifically focusing on physical, mental, and emotional health strategies. Jeff has worked and studied with top experts in the world in the areas of mental conditioning, stress reduction, emotional intelligence, longevity, biofeedback, nutrition, injury prevention, and human movement. And today he serves as a dynamic keynote speaker and performance coach, fellow coach in the house. He's committed to helping CEOs, executive leadership teams, and management teams achieve optimal performance. He leads them through his method called the Zone of Excellence to achieve the next level of execution and performance. Yeah. So his successful framework helps individuals and organizations embrace a growth mindset, eliminate limiting beliefs, which is obviously our connection here too with, we talk about another word for the stories that keep us stuck is another words for that are limiting beliefs. And so not only does Jeff bring his experience and his wisdom with all the things here, he also has a personal connection to the work we do as freedom from alcohol coaches. And so we welcome him and are excited to kind of hear his story and just get to be blessed by this time with him today. So thanks, Jeff.
Thank you so much for that intro. I wonder where you got all that information. Maybe my bio, but it's wonderful to be here. This is a long time coming, and Meade, we've gotten to know each other the last few months through a mutual friend, and we're all on a similar path, growth and transformation and help in serving others. And so I'm really excited to be here and to share some of my stories and insights and help the listeners.
So why don't you kind of start with where your story begins and
Well, for all those tennis obsessed fans listening, and for Christy, I'm going to start at the U.S. Open. It's 1990.
I was really hoping you were going to do that.
Yeah, we're going to start. We're going to start right there. It's 1997. I'm playing in the second round of the U.S. Open. I had won my first round as a wild card. I'd gotten to about 140 in the world. And I'm playing inside of Arthur Ashe Stadium in front of 24,000 people. And I'm playing against world number 2, Michael Chang. And I come out on the court, and in the first 4 games, I was really nervous. And we can get into the anxiety and I was really pent up. And somehow, some way, because of my big 125 mile an hour lefty serve, I was able to hold serve twice. And so it was 2-all in the first set. And I remember taking a deep breath, and I just relaxed into that moment. And I started playing the best tennis of my life for the next 15 or 20 minutes. And that got me into position to be up 5-4 in the first set. I was serving. I had broken serve. So I was up 5-4 in the first set. I had set point. I hit a great wide slice serve. I come in with hit this beautiful backhand volley to the open court. And Chang was the fastest guy on tour. He couldn't even run the volley down. And I win the first set on Michael Chang at the US Open. The crowd absolutely erupts. I see all these guys in suits from Wall Street that were there in the front row. They're standing up. They're pointing at me like, where did this guy come from? And the TV camera zooms in on me. And John McEnroe was like, yeah, Salzy, he's from Stanford, just like me. Look at this guy. The TV cameras zoom in on me, and I've got this little sly smile on my face, like, look what I just did. Well, the inside story around that is that in that moment, the match ended. And the reason that the match ended was because the dominant thought in my head was, thank God you didn't embarrass yourself tonight. And I ended up losing that match in 4 sets. It was an entertaining match. I didn't embarrass myself. I succeeded. I achieved my goal of not embarrassing myself. So that's where we start with limiting beliefs. That's where we start with, these athletes that are doing extraordinary things. They're also human beings as well, with limiting thoughts as well and limiting beliefs. And so from that experience took me on a journey to learn about the mind, to learn about the body, to learn about the soul, and to understand, what was holding me back as a professional athlete. And there's more to that story after that match and what happened, but I think I'll stop there and see if there's any questions or insights. And again, I can take you on a journey back to how it all started, and I can take you on a journey forward depending on where you want to go.
Yeah. So I think what I love and what you say there, it's how powerful our thinking is in creating, an entire trajectory, whether it's on a tennis court or when we're, exploring our relationship to alcohol. The power in our thinking is so massive. And without awareness for that impact, it can take us, in a million different directions with or without our, without our control, so to speak. So yeah, I think you paint a beautiful picture of the power of that. And I'd love to hear more how that has related to where you are now and what you do. Yeah.
Sure. Well, then the next day I found myself in a Midtown Manhattan hotel room with Jeff Schwartz, who was Pete Sampras's agent at the time. He's a super agent. He's sitting with the junior agent, David Egdes, who's now at the Tennis Channel. And they sat me down. They said, you're the hot and now American player. We represent IMG. We're going to sign you to a contract. We think you're going to do big things in pro tennis. And so I signed on the dotted line. And 3 months later, I had an off-season ankle injury that was misdiagnosed for 8 months. And finally, I ended up having ankle surgery. Then I came back from that 6 months later. My first tournament back, I had knee surgery. So by the time I was 25 years old, my body was failing me. And it was in this time, through this adversity, which is what I really speak on and coach, is how do you bounce back from adversity, and how do you bounce back quickly? Not struggle for years and years and years. How do you bounce back in maybe a day or two or in 5 minutes? What are the tools and the strategies or the ways of healing to be able to do that? But I started going on this journey. I went to my first yoga class. I started eating organic food before it was considered cool. This is 25 years ago. I was going to alfalfas and wild oats before it was called Whole Foods. And I really went deep into nutrition and healing the body because I wasn't satisfied with the answers that I was getting in the kind of the medical world with my ankle and my knee. And I basically, was at that crossroads. Do I quit pro tennis and get a real job at 25, or do I stick with it? And I decided to stick with it. And, that led me again on this journey to learn all about the mind and the body and the spirit. And I broke the top 100 in the world for the first time at the age of 30 after a lot of trials and tribulations. Tennis is a lonely sport. You do a lot of things alone, and there's positives and negatives to that. But I wouldn't trade that journey for the world, because little did I know it was going to set me up for becoming a coach. And we'll get into how I transitioned from being a player to a coach. But, my journey is interesting because I made it interesting. I've always been really curious. I've asked a lot of questions. I didn't accept the status quo. And so I'm really blessed that I've been able to kind of follow this story arc of kind of the hero's journey, if you will. I started playing tennis when I was 5 years old, and I was a national champion at 12, coming from a ski state in Colorado, not a tennis state. And I struggled in my teenage years. So those that are listening, that are parents that have teenagers, you probably can relate to some of the struggles that the teenagers have. Hey, I was number one in the country at 12, and I was losing first round at 15 in the nationals. So that's a time when a kid would quit tennis or quit a sport because they were on top, and now they're at the bottom, and people were, kicking me, saying, this guy, he's done, he's over. So I rededicated myself as a teenager. That allowed me to go to Stanford. And when I was at Stanford, I had a great freshman year, but I had the worst serve in college tennis. And so instead of following the herd and playing all these tournaments in the summer, I went back to Denver to try to solve my serve. And I had this accidental transformation where I added 20 miles an hour to my serve that changed the trajectory of my life. And I ended up going back to Stanford and playing number one and being dominant in college because I transformed my serve. And the lesson there is that you're always this far away from a transformation. One little step, one decision, one turn in the road can change your life in a positive way. It can also change your life in a negative way. And so, that accidental transformation of developing that serve led me on that path to play pro tennis and to have all the experiences that I've had. So I feel very blessed that I've had accidental transformations, and also I would like to think conscious transitions and transformations. And so when I coach people, I really try to help them through the transitions. I try to help them with their blind spots to transform. And again, I'll stop there because I unpacked a lot to get us to the moment of kind of when I transitioned from playing to coaching. And so if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Yeah, I have a question because I heard you talk about it on another podcast, but just about how you came to the realization of alcohol, not drinking, basically being the ultimate health hack, right? And and something that was so helpful for up-leveling everything. Can you speak a little to that?
Yes, let's get into that. So my alcohol journey, I was the golden child growing up. And, I've done a lot of work, a lot of healing work around trauma, childhood adversity. And what in the most simple way that I can explain it, what I've come to realize is that when my parents divorced when I was 4 years old, father wasn't in the picture, although he was my first tennis coach. And when I say he wasn't in the picture, he didn't raise me in the home from age 5 until as I grew up. So he was still very much in my life, but not living with me. But as a 4-year-old, that could unconsciously be very confusing. Like, where'd my dad go? And what I think I took on was, hey, in order for me to get love, in order for me to be validated, instead of getting into trouble, I'm just going to be perfect. I'm going to get the 4-0. I'm going to be number one. I'm going to work harder than everyone, because if I achieve, and if I'm the best at something, then everyone will notice me. Then everyone will love me. And so my journey was around perfectionism, around being the golden child. And so that took me into sports, into tennis, where, again, kind of the goody two shoes. I never was getting into trouble. I was always in our friend group, I was always the guy that'd say, hey guys, I don't have a good feeling about this one. So I clearly had some intuition about, doing those things. I still got into a little bit of trouble, but what happened in high school was, again, I was the last person to get drunk. I remember it was after a state championship that we lost, and I got drunk for the first time, and everyone thought it was funny because I was like the last of the Mohicans. Getting into college, it was kind of like weekend warrior type stuff. But as a tennis player, you're so focused on, your performance and your health, your ranking, that you don't want drinking to sidetrack that. So I would pick my spots, but as you all know, that there's this connection around beliefs that, alcohol means more fun. And that's what it was like in high school. That's what it was in the toga parties in the SAE house at Stanford. But I always kind of hid from that because I had the excuse, hey guys, I got to go practice. And so I was always respected in that, like, hey, Jeff's serious about his tennis. We're not gonna mess with him. We're gonna let him have a pass. We're not gonna haze him and such. When I had all those injuries in my mid-20s, I would go in between. I'd go 3 months where I'd be a monk or a hermit and I wouldn't drink at all. And then I'd go 3 months where I would go party. I'd go, I'm not playing tennis and I'm depressed and I'm anxious about my ankle and my knee. And so I kind of went on that yo-yo of like, don't drink and then go party. And usually, again, I would drink, and I'm just going to be fully transparent and real here. The reason I would drink was to get attention from women. It wasn't to drink with the guys. That was boring to me. It was if I go to a bar and I have a few drinks, then I have the liquid courage to maybe talk to a girl. I was pretty shy, fear of rejection. And then bringing us up to like really fast forwarding, that was a similar pattern on the pro tour where I really picked my spots. I didn't drink a lot. It wasn't a problem, but certainly just drinking is going to affect your performance, even if it's 1% or 2%. I'm going to fast forward to life after tennis. 4.5 years ago, I was still kind of recreational drinking. Mainly if I was dating, I'd go out and I felt like I needed to drink because the other person was drinking. If she was drinking, having a couple glasses of wine, then I needed to. And so I think my relationship with alcohol was always more of like that means to an end of being liked, being loved, fear of rejection, taking down the inhibitions a little bit. But it never was a problem. 4.5 years ago, I went to a workshop, an alcohol-free workshop. And I remember they talked about the cost and the price of alcohol, financial, time, sleep, all of that. And they brought in nutritionists and sleep experts. And at the end of the workshop, the coach said, okay, we're going to do a 30-day challenge, alcohol-free challenge. Who's in? When you go back home, who's going to do it? And I'd say 80% of the room raised their hand. And me not wanting to conform to everybody, I didn't raise my hand. I said, 30 days, that's a long time to commit. I'm not sure if I want to even do that. I remember getting on the plane from LA to Denver, and there was that niggle. Like, maybe I should try this. So I went home and I did the 30-day challenge. 30 days became 60 days, the next 30-day challenge. And I did it with myself. There was no accountability. It was just me. And then 60 became 90. And then when I was, at the time I was dating, I was single. I would just tell women, hey, I just want you to know I'm doing this alcohol-free challenge because as you all know, in the world, if you say you're alcohol-free, people assume you have a problem. So if you're online dating, they're going to say, oh, is this guy coming out of AA or what? There's a whole stigma around it. And so I would just tell them, listen, I'm just doing this challenge. And so now it's been 4.5 years. I haven't touched a drop of alcohol. I have no desire. The belief systems have completely shifted. And I walk into rooms and I tell people I'm alcohol free and I'm ready for all the different reactions. And I almost do it now as it's like a badge of courage or a way to open up the conversation. And I imagine certain people are feeling uncomfortable when I'm so kind of open and free about being alcohol free. And so that's really a big through line in my coaching. What's interesting is I'm attracting successful leaders and CEOs now that either have a drug problem or an alcohol problem, and they're not like wanting to go to AA. They're not wanting to go, and they're actually like, would you help me? And it's really interesting to see these guys that are worth millions of dollars. They've built these incredible careers and they have these substance challenges, and they're reaching out to me because they know they know me as a friend, and they know that I'm alcohol free, and they know my brother's story, which I know we're going to get into. So I know it's a really long-winded story there, but I figured I'd just unpack all of it so we can take it wherever you want to go.
Yeah, no, I have a question because I get this question and I hate this question, but I feel like therefore I know people are going to have it. Is how long did it take? I know it's the worst question, but how long did it take from going, I'm completely uncomfortable speaking to women without this glass in my hand, to I'm going to walk into a room and feel totally confident about saying I'm alcohol free?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm probably not a great case study where they're going to be like, oh, Jeff can do it. It's so easy for him. I think it didn't take long for me. I think because I'm a performance coach, because I have the synapses firing in my brain of like positivity and performance, and I've lived that really, for the most part, clean life as an athlete. And I consider myself one of the lucky ones. A lot of athletes, they far exceeded I joke that I was almost famous. I played against all these guys that you mentioned earlier, and Sampras and Federer and Chang, but I was almost famous. I was a draw filler. Unless you really followed tennis in our era, you didn't know who I was. But if you did follow tennis, you knew. So, but I see guys that, have won gold medal in the Olympics. They're top 10 in the world, and they're riddled with anxiety. They're taking medication. They're taking sleep pills to sleep at night. I mean, it's a real epidemic, if you will. So I consider myself one of the lucky ones that when I was 24 years old, I went on this holistic path. So then when I made this transition, and like, how long does it take? It wasn't hard for me because I was already living it as a coach and as an athlete. But what I will say to folks, and by the way, to humanize me a little bit, to say, oh, it's easy for Jeff. I've been doing a lot of deep healing work in the last couple of years, and even more intensely lately. And what I've realized is that tennis players, and especially athletes, we are taught to stuff down our emotions and our feelings. And, you have 25 seconds between points to bounce back. You don't have time to get into your feelings. You don't have time to be sad. You don't have time to be angry or feel grief. And so I think that actually does a disservice to athletes learning how to get in touch with themselves and their emotions. So I'm really been working on that. And so when someone is uncomfortable about sharing their truth or being self-conscious, or how long does it take, what I would say is go deeper with that. Is like, can you start to work with your emotions and your thoughts and your limiting beliefs, and look at it not as how long is it going to take, is just in each moment, can you actually feel into it and go deeper with it than just saying, oh gosh, how long, I want to avoid this. How long is it going to take before I finally get to the point? It's not about how long it takes.
Yeah.
It's about unpacking and knowing yourself at a deeper level. And like my coach now is always like, okay, if you start noticing emotions and feelings, don't avoid it and distract, actually feel it. Like, learn to feel safe in your body with yourself. And I think that is like the foundation to build from. And that you might surprise yourself. It may only take 2 weeks to shift from that if you're willing to feel that more. It may take 2 years. It may take 10 years, but keep feeling and keep noticing and journaling and working with someone to get clear on where those thoughts and those emotions are coming from.
Yeah, I love that so much. I actually had a client just before this, and she was in tears, and she's like, how long am I going to feel like this? And I'm like, when was the last time you even cried? When was the last time you felt any of these feelings that you're telling me about? And so I love that answer, because it's just so true. Yeah.
We want to help her and others ask a different question. It's not how long.
Yeah.
It's not how long. It's what a gift.
Yeah.
And you're supported, and learn to feel safe in your body. Learn to feel okay, that uncomfortable emotions are actually okay. We're not taught that. And so that is, again, as a man who, listen, alpha, serving 130 miles an hour, playing on the biggest stages. I mean, it can't get more alpha than that, right? But I'm really intrigued by the soft skills. I'm intrigued by getting into our emotions and the stuff that is not talked about, and the stuff that a lot of men struggle with. I want to be, if you will, might sound a little cheesy, but a beacon of light of like, hey, you can be masculine, you can be an alpha, and also learn how to get in touch with your feelings and your emotions. Because when you do that, you're a better version of yourself, and then you can show up for everyone around you. And the alcohol is like the biggest hack around. I mean, it's the biggest hack. It's the biggest performance tip, but it's also very revealing onto, okay, what is this person avoiding? How are they distracting? How are they not showing up in the world? What pain do they have that they're not dealing with? And they're probably not aware of it until they become aware of it. And they work with folks like you to really unpack that. And I just think it's a beautiful mission or path that we're all on to open this up to the world. Because this wasn't exposed to me as a child, as a pro tennis player, as a coach. Like the idea of alcohol free, you think of people that drink alcohol, if you have an issue, you have to go to AA. And that never really resonated with me. Even with my brother, who again, I know we're going to talk about, we were really struggling with that whole concept and trying to find other ways to heal than that model. Not to say that model's wrong. It's helped a lot of people, but I think there are different ways to create success and fulfillment in this area.
Yeah. Can you tell us what happened with your brother?
Yes. So, the big reason we're doing this podcast is because of my brother. And, I'm committed to sharing his story because I believe if there's one person that listens to a podcast or one of my speeches or connects with me when I'm coaching them, if there's one person that connects with his story, and it could save a life, it could change the trajectory of someone's life. And so with my brother, my father remarried, raised a family. I have 3 siblings that live in Florida. They're much younger. They're my half siblings. And my brother, Eric, was the oldest of the 3. And so there's a 17-year age difference. I was 17 going off to Stanford when he was born. They had me be his godfather as well. And so that obviously said a lot that my parents had enough faith in me that I would guide him if he needed help. And so fast forward, he started, teenage years, he started smoking pot. He actually was put on ADD medication at age 9. And then he started getting into the more serious drugs like alcohol, marijuana. And then it led to more extreme use of drugs. And that was in high school. And so I was on the pro tour doing my thing, and he was really struggling. And I was actually struggling to transition from pro tennis to what's next. I'm 34 years old. I'm not doing as well as I'd like. I'm feeling lonely on the tour. I was not listening to my heart. I was listening to my head. I kept pushing because I'm not a quitter and I just keep fighting. But if I would have listened to my intuition and my heart, I would have walked away. It was just very difficult. But the thing that got me to walk away was walking into my brother's room one morning when I was visiting New Year's Eve, actually December 30th, 2007, walking into his room and seeing him passed out on the floor. And, foam coming out of his mouth. And, he was basically, from my perspective, he was overdosing. So cocktail of drugs, get him to the hospital. Within 6 days, I got him into a rehab facility, which was not necessarily AA based. It had this whole program of supplements and sauna and detox. And I really did the research and got him into rehab. And then he came to live with me. I quit tennis. I quit pro tennis that day that I saw him lying on the floor. I said, I'm done. This is a brother's love story. I'm just going to do this. This is kind of in a way, it was kind of my out. It was like my way of saying, okay, I have an excuse to quit tennis and I have a bigger calling. And so, we moved in together in Denver. I bought my first home, and within 3 months, he started using drugs again and went back to Florida. That led him on a destructive path that landed him in prison. He served a 4-year prison term, committed 2 felonies that landed him there. And it was in prison, and this is what, you all talk about, the power of our thoughts. It was in prison that he realized that he had been in the prison of his own mind his whole life. And he called me about 1.5 years into his sentence. And he said, Jeff, I want to change, but I have no idea how to do it. Imagine that, like someone who's been on this path as a drug dealer and a drug addict and abusing alcohol. He wants to change, but he doesn't even know where to start. And for me, I'm like, it's easy. I've been doing this my whole life. So, you learn frame of reference where people are at. So I sent him a book. I sent him Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins, and he read the book cover to cover. And it gave him his value system. It gave him a plan, a structure. And we would get on calls. He'd call me from the prison house phone. We get on calls every week, and he would share what he was working on. And I would give him tips on how he could keep kind of tweaking what he was doing. And, he started meditating. He started journaling. He started doing all the things that we should be doing in real life, he was doing it in prison. He was cleaning the toilets before 5 a.m. He was being of service. He got into a speaking group. He learned how to become a speaker, the Gavel Club. Didn't even know he had that hidden talent. And so I really watched my brother transform his life. He became a total meathead. He was lifting weights like crazy, and just an absolutely remarkable transformation. And the lesson there is that, gosh, if my brother can do it, solitary confinement for 50 days, maximum security, gang fights. And this is a kid who came from the suburbs. He could be any one of our sons, and his mother raised him Catholic, and he went to church every Sunday, and my dad's into sports. I mean, there was no reason for it to go this direction. But when he got out of prison, he was still on that path to really just knock it out of the park. And so I mentored and coached him for about 3 years. He won a speaking contest that got him a TEDx talk. We can attach the link to his talk. That was 18 months after getting out of prison. Started building an incredible online business. But the problem was that, in my estimation, he didn't have that solid foundation. He didn't have the healing work. He was trying. He was really trying. But the moment he got out of prison, he started drinking. And I said, Eric, not a good idea. Don't do it. Don't even go there, man. We've worked so hard. I get a little emotional thinking about it, but he worked so hard. And I knew, with his background, with the propensity towards addiction, I said, don't even go there. And, of course, if I could fast forward, like what I know now, I would have probably guided him in a different way. I just would say that, don't do it. And then that was that. And then he would say, I got it. He's like, couple drinks, I'm good. I like my wine. And, that led to more, aggressive drinking, and then ultimately to drugs again. And so I watched this three-year ascent, this incredible ascent where he was changing the world, podcasts and TED Talks, and he was a real thought leader in his industry. And then the moment he started using the hard drugs, I watched this downward spiral for 2.5 years. And then 5 months ago, he accidentally overdosed fentanyl and cocaine. He was alone in a room in his roommate's house. The door was locked, and he, was hiding in his pain, and that was, that was it. And so when that happened, obviously I feel called to share this story. It's so tragic, but obviously I'm choosing to focus on the legacy and the positive and the life lessons, and maybe how we can do things different. Because he had a real powerful message. I thought we were going to be on stages together, so now I'm called to be on that stage. So yeah, again, if it can help anyone, and we can help unpack this and see where it maybe went sideways, I will say it was the alcohol that was the gateway. The moment he started drinking, that was that slippery slope that many of us are on, right? That idea of moderation, like it just doesn't work for most people. And so, yeah.
Wow. I think about how it's sold to us as it's not the same as like the hard drugs.
Yeah.
And yet alcohol is a drug, and how easy it is for us to believe that it's okay if it's it's okay because it's just alcohol. And so, I'm so sorry for the loss of your brother, Eric.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm an Enneagram 3, and if any of you follow the Enneagram, that's like,
yep, that's me too.
Okay, we're the achievers.
Yep.
And I don't spend a lot of time in the muck. I don't spend a lot of time in the feelings, which is again why I'm working on this so deeply with myself. But when I do take 45 minutes to do a podcast and I get into my story, like I just get emotional. It's like, it's just rough because like I have people now that are like, gosh, that could have been me. Like I have people that are in recovery that are like, that could have been me. And it's not, for whatever reason. But it is fascinating that I'm being pulled into this world. I'm attracting clients that have challenges in this area. I'm on podcasts. I know my keynote is strongly influenced by his story. So we're together on it.
Yeah, you totally are. You
Yeah.
totally are.
In his TED talk, he said something that I'm like, this is just so true. And it just is, and for him, it was, you don't have to be in prison to be imprisoned by something. And I think of when I listened to that and I heard that, I thought of every single client I've ever worked with. And, the thousands I've coached in all of these groups. And I can see their faces and think about how it really feels like that. You're imprisoned by it. And it starts with our thinking. It starts with the thinking that leads to the feeling. And there's so many parts of your story and that overlap with my story and, our listeners, and kind of that to avoid rejection and the belonging and the, pushing down what we're feeling and never being taught that it's okay to be comfortable in what we're feeling. And then where alcohol can make this kind of like tiny, I always say this, like tiny opening.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
I knew I was going to say it. We create this tiny opening in our lives for this alcohol thing because it's not a drug. It's just this thing that, the elixir of life. It helps us have fun. It helps us, connect to other people. And then the real life results of that, it's an addictive substance, and it doesn't take much for it to lead to, just devastation on so many levels. And I see so much beauty and passion in your story, Jeff, that comes from that place of kind of living and sharing the memory of your brother, and how, y'all listen to his TED talk, because wow, what a firecracker, like his energy. And I think it's amazing that, to me, it feels like you get to kind of do this healing work for both of y'all. And what a gift that is for people that get to work with you and hear from you.
Yeah. Thank you. My brother is a powerhouse. And by the way, I know I'm getting emotional, and I want everyone to know I'm okay. I went to a speaker coach and they said, hey, when you tell the sad stories and you're in that moment, the audience wants to know, all right, is this guy okay? I am okay, right? I'm well adjusted. I'm grounded in who I am. I have the tools and the strategies. I'm also comfortable letting these emotions come up and come out, because it's part of that healing journey. And you talked about prison, and there's so many lessons with, I think, again, with my story and my brother's story. We have the tennis metaphor. Tennis is a metaphor of life. All the limiting beliefs, all the thinking that holds us back, the self-sabotage. And then we have my brother, and the irony is that it took him going to prison and having these walls put around him. I look at it as structure. The structure put around him, and the removal of distractions, if you will, that allowed him to actually find freedom. He found his freedom in a maximum security prison. And we look out in the world, what I noticed is the longer he was out of prison, the less free he was. He built a business from $0 to $80,000 months in a year. That doesn't happen. That's not normal. But that accelerated success is also his downfall. The money came too fast. And as soon as the money comes, whatever your weaknesses are, they'll show up. Your addictions, whether it's women, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether it's whatever the self-sabotage is, it will show up when you have money come into your life. So you better have your foundation set. You better have your faith in order. You better be around the right people that are going to hold you accountable. And you need to be accountable to yourself. You need to be able to be honest with yourself. And so, he had his freedom. He had his freedom in prison. And when he got out, I just noticed he felt less and less free, the more success, the more he had to sell product or pay the bills or be there for other people. And there are so many people, not at the extreme level as my brother, but so many of us, this is really the journey. This is the hero's journey, is to get into our bodies, get out of our minds, and to use our minds in a constructive way. When we do use it, so many people are in prison all day long. And the alcohol is actually a solution to the problem.
Yeah.
Alcohol is solving our problems. It happens to be a poor solution, but it is a solution. And we're so unconscious to it. And like you said, we're so conditioned that drinking is fun. It will help me relax. I don't have to feel. I don't have to feel my body. And it's the opposite. If you want true liberation and freedom, you have to go through it. You have to go through the pain. You have to go look back at your childhood and your trauma and heal that. And you have to be willing, have the courage to do it. And again, most people don't even have the awareness that this is going on, right? So this is where this is our work, is to help people see this. And then the next step is, okay, now what do we do about it? What's the plan? What are my daily actions? And a lot of people aren't willing to make the changes in their life because they're comfortable. But the only thing we have in life, the only thing that is certain is change, impermanence. Like nothing stays the same. And when we grip onto it and we hold on to, we want things to be the way they are, that's where we're in prison. We have to, it's so interesting. The paradox of life is I'm getting deep here. It's just everything we think to be true, we have to just kind of like dismantle and question and challenge. And that's what I love, about, being open-minded about thinking and changing our thinking is it allows us to grow and to learn. And that's why we're on this planet, is to grow and learn. It's not about the money. It's not about the achievements. It's every situation, good or bad, is did we grow and learn? And can we keep elevating?
Love that.
Yeah, it's also like that difference too when when we were talking about like, well, how long does it take for me to step into this, confidently going into a room and saying like, I'm alcohol free, and what comes from that? Because I remember being terrified of that, and then how different it is now for me too, and thinking about how it's that experiential, I'm going with this too, Christy. It's the experiential knowledge that we get to go through, like, instead of saying, I just don't want to be uncomfortable in this. How do I avoid the discomfort? It's like, no, how do I get to experience the growth and the goodness and the abundance in this place? It's not, I just want to not drink anymore. I want to feel relief from that. I don't want to deal with that anymore. It's like, no, like we actually get so much more when we're shifting our mindset towards what we do get to experience. And then through the healing work, because the mind and body are connected. Hello, they are connected. Who knew? But they are. And the more that we can step into that, lean into that discomfort and heal what needs to be healed, that's what leads to the transformation. That's the experiential knowledge that we get. That creates a completely different, way for us. And I love how your story, I think about how, it's just a really unique and beautiful story. And I'm so grateful that you've
thank you.
Shared it here, and your brothers as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. If there was one tiny new action that you could leave, or thought or action or anything to leave with our listeners, what would that be?
I'm going to give you two.
Okay.
Because I like it's podcast plus time. So the first one, and I've shared it on other podcasts, but I want to keep this alive. Because on another podcast, the podcast interviewer said that it was probably the most profound thing that he had ever heard on the hundreds of episodes they did. So I'm not putting you guys on the spot that you have to say that as well, but I do think it means something. So my brother and I, when he started using again, and I found out, I was angry. I've been angry many times with the relapses and the back and forth. And, I poured my heart and soul into trying to help him, and my family did everything we could. And so we were estranged for the last year, before he ultimately passed away. And, I always have struggled. I've struggled with this because I think I'm pretty good with boundaries. I don't think I'm like world class yet, but I think I'm pretty good. And so I always held a hard boundary. If my brother was using drugs, I wasn't really going to have anything to do with his life. I took a hard stance. And I now know that, with someone who's struggling with addiction, that can be very hurtful, right? That you're not there for them in any way, shape, or form, basically. And I was the kind of the hardliner in the family. And I got coaching on that of like, that's one way to do it. But looking back on it now, like what I would do differently and what I encourage anyone that's listening, there are a lot of people that are estranged out there or have strained relationships with family members or friends or haven't talked to them for years. If I could go back, I would send my brother a text every month that we were estranged. And I would just say, I love you. That's it. I would say, I love you. And, you know, whether you're struggling with a drugs or addiction or alcohol or not, I think, and he might not have changed his behaviors, the same fate may have taken place. But I think just him knowing, I knew he knew, but like just that reach out. So anyone that's listening, if you're called to reach out to someone who's struggling and just say, I love you because, like, that's it. Like, just because I love you. And I'm working on that. That's not an easy thing to do in our world around that conditional, if you do this behavior, then I'm not going to blah, blah, blah. But that's what I would have done. And so I encourage everyone to reach out and say, I love you. The second one is what I finished with at the end that I'm really deep into. Well, they're going to be double here, 2 more. So I'm going to give 3. One is to
I like
really,
your style.
let's just,
This is
I like threes.
This is how
The
I
power
roll.
of 3s. We got 3 of us on today and my 3 core steps. But one is when you start to get into your body and you start to notice the uncomfortable feelings, whether it's sadness or grief, and it's in your heart or it's in your throat or your gut, start to do that more. Like, see if you can take 30 seconds or a minute just to get out of your head and feel in your body and know that it's a guidepost for you. It's a guidepost towards knowing yourself at a deeper level, because everyone's got the monkey mind. Practice getting into your body 30 seconds a day, 1 minute a day. And then related to that, accept the fact that everything is impermanent. It's like nothing stays the same. There's always change and uncertainty. And I think if we can embrace uncertainty and change and embrace that, like truly say, you know what? I don't know what's coming next, but I'm going to just trust the process. Embracing uncertainty is a big mindset shift that could help a lot of people.
Yeah. Meade, are you okay?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Good. It sounded like you fell over.
Christy, embrace the uncertainty there. Of
Embrace the uncertainty.
It sounded like you fell over.
My kids stole my computer charger thing and my battery is about. This is summertime. Okay.
Yeah.
Podcasting with the kids home.
The uncertainty of power cords. I get it.
Yes.
I've done it before. I don't even have kids and I still forget to plug in the power cord.
I'm like, why? It's never unplugged. Why is it unplugged? And it's missing. Because this is what happened. So embrace uncertainty and discomfort. The discomfort that I'm feeling right now, that you're dropping like massive wisdom. And I'm like, oh crap, my computer is literally about to die.
So so as a speaker and a coach, let me summarize. Sure. Tell people I love you when you're not very close to them right now.
Yeah.
Start feeling your feelings in your body. You'll be safe. You will be okay. It's going to be okay. Even if the pain is intense, it's a guidepost. And 3, embrace the uncertainty of life. You do those 3 things, I think things start getting a lot better for you.
Yeah. And I love that.
It's so true. That's what I work with. I mean, that's probably the hardest thing that my clients that we work on together is feeling what they are not accustomed to feeling. And
totally.
Yeah. Tapping into like you said, the guideposts that like the sensations in our bodies, they are here to teach us, to show us, to give us some amazing clues about, about ourselves and about our world. And so to pay attention to them is really the greatest gift. And I love your story and how it highlights all of that and just how you do it too, how you practice it in real life and all of it.
Yeah. I've made a commitment that I can only take my clients as deep as I'm willing to go with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I have to be doing the work. I have to be, doing the meditations. I have to be like reflecting. I have to be feeling. I have to do all the work myself so that I can take people on that journey to transformation. And so I'm committed. I'm turning 50 in October, and, you know, I'm on this second curve of life. You know, we're on the back half now, and the back half is about sharing wisdom. It's about being of service to others. It's not about achievements. That was the first half of life. And so that is what I'm committed to. I'm committed to helping men and women and anyone really figure out that you curve. And here's the good news. You don't have to start the second curve when you're 50. You can start you can start earlier. You can start to learn these
38
principles.
over here.
Start at 38. You can start at any moment to tap into that.
That's when I started, though.
Oh, I was like, oh, we get to say we're 38.
We can all say we're 38 if we want.
That's when my curve started, guys.
I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
I
Jeff,
know.
tell everybody where they can find you.
Okay, my website is jeffsalzenstein.com. That is where I do my executive coaching, performance coaching. You can find out information with the speaking. The other thing that I always do is to create that human connection, because as a tennis player, I spent a lot of time alone, and I spent a lot of time disconnected because I didn't play with a team. You know, Stanford University was playing 4 years at Stanford was my fondest memories because I played with a team. So I'm really big on connection and belonging. You mentioned this, Meade. So I'm going to give my cell phone out. Don't blow it up. But if anyone feels called to reach out, to speak to me, has any questions about my brother or my journey, I'm going to give my number. You could give it in the show notes as well. 303, it's a Colorado area code, 303-882-9028. Because again, I feel like if my brother's story, my story can save a life, and that means a text message of like, hey, I'm really struggling. What do I do with this? Where do I go? I might be able to lead that person in the right direction.
Love that.
So good.
So
Yeah.
good.
We'll include all of this.
Thank you.
Website, Eric's TED Talk, your cell phone number. We'll include all of that in the show notes. And we are just so grateful for your time, for your story, for your life, for you, Jeff. Thank you for joining us. And
I really feel it's just the beginning, by the way. My life has been so full to this moment, but I hiked my first 14er yesterday. I've lived in Colorado most of my life, never hiked a 14er. I did it yesterday. I'm now going to hike more 14ers. So your new life can start at any time. And that includes being alcohol free. So go for it.
Love it. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us again this week. You can find all of our episodes at butjesusdrankwine.com, and make sure you follow us over on the gram at Love Life Sober with Christy and Meade at I'm Not Sober, I'm Free.
To learn more about what we do, you can visit our websites at meadhollandshirley.com and lovelifesober.com.
Take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with a friend or two.
And don't forget to subscribe so you don't have to worry about missing a single episode. And if you love what we're doing, please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify.
This helps more women who are feeling stuck and alone in the overdrinking cycle to find hope and encouragement.
Thanks, ladies. We so appreciate you. We'll see you next week.